Thank you for your time today. I understand this is a marriage proposal, but we don't approve. Please go home now. When we went to my boyfriend Travis's family home to announce our engagement, his mother gave me a cold look and spoke to me rudely. I knew from the beginning that his parents didn't like me, but I wasn't going to back down. I gathered my courage and introduced myself to my future in-laws. My name is Marina. I'm 26 years old and work in the general affairs department of a manufacturing company. I've been dating Travis for a year. He's 3 years older than me and we work in the same department. His kind smile and gentle nature made me fall in love with him. We live alone, so we often visit each other's places and enjoy our weekends together. I take Travis to my parents' house nearby, and they always cook special meals for him. My parents like him a lot, and he gets along well with my father. I thought everything would be fine after we got married. However, Travis has been hesitant to introduce me to his parents. When I asked him why, he seemed troubled and said, "Can you wait a little longer? My parents are nothing like yours. I wish I had been raised by people like your parents." When Travis said he wished his parents were like mine, he looked a bit sad. I wondered if he had a bad relationship with them. I decided to wait until he was ready to talk about it. I wasn't in a hurry to get married, so I thought it was best to let him bring it up when he was ready. But things don't always go as planned. One holiday, while Travis and I were on our way to our favorite restaurant, something surprising happened. As the staff guided us to our table, Travis suddenly looked shocked and started fidgeting. "What's wrong?" I asked. He seemed at a loss for words and couldn't answer. I felt anxious, wondering if I had done something wrong. Just then, a woman in her 50s approached our table. "Oh, isn't that dear Travis? I hadn't heard from you in a while. I was wondering what you were up to," she said, chatting warmly with Travis. Then she looked at me with a critical gaze. Her eyes were slightly downturned, giving her a sharp, assessing look, and her neatly tied back hair accentuated the shape of her eyes. As I looked back at her, confused, she let out a dismissive laugh. "Are you really hanging out with someone like her, Travis? You're such a good kid. If you don't like it, you need to tell her straight. Otherwise, she won't get the hint." Travis's face tensed and he stared back at the woman. "I won't tolerate any insults to her," he said, defending me. The woman, still giving me a piercing look, said, "It's a pity my boy's been fooled by someone like you. Leave Travis alone right now." She then paid her bill and left the restaurant. I turned to Travis, confused. "What was that about?" Travis spoke quietly. "That was my mother. A few years ago, I had to break up with someone I was thinking of marrying because of her. The girl didn't want to deal with a mother like mine, so she ended things. That's why she acted like that." Travis looked troubled. "If you choose to stay with me, it might cause complications. Should we break up here?" I reassured him, "Don't worry, I won't let this affect our work, and I'll make sure there are no issues." Travis looked pained. "I see, but I still want to be with you, Travis. Do you really want to break up with me?" Travis was shocked by my words. "You know how my mother is. If you marry me, it'll be a burden." I replied, "I don't mind. That's part of marriage, and we don't have to live with her, right?" "We will never have to live with her," I said. "If she insists, I'll ask for a transfer at work, and we can move far away." Travis looked at me very seriously, and I smiled back. Then I feel reassured. "Is it strange if I propose to you?" "Are you sure?" I asked, feeling embarrassed and my face turning red. "Yes, I'm sure. I want to live with you in the future," he said. I felt a bit flustered but really happy. I wanted to be with him for the rest of my life. Travis finally smiled, and I felt relieved. Afterward, we went to introduce ourselves to my parents. They were excited and asked eagerly about how we decided to marry. This meant I had to talk about my soon-to-be mother-in-law. We tried to avoid the topic, pretending to be shy, hoping to change the subject, but my mother wouldn't let it go. "Have you introduced yourselves to Travis's parents yet, or is that still to come?" she asked. Travis and I were surprised by the question. "No, I don't plan on telling our parents about our marriage," Travis said. "What? Why not?" my mother asked, shocked. "Because I'm sure my parents would never approve of our marriage," Travis replied. My father gave us a serious look. "That's not acceptable. Marriage is about joining two families. Your mother would be devastated if she found out you were married without her knowing. You both should at least visit them once. If they still refuse, come talk to us and we'll help you." My father's words were firm and reassuring, but Travis looked worried. "I'm fine," I said with a smile, trying to calm his concerns. I thought that if we couldn't get past this issue, we wouldn't be able to find true happiness together. Later, Travis told his parents that I would be coming to meet them. Although they didn't seem very welcoming, he managed to arrange the meeting. Travis's father was a CEO, and they lived in a large house with a big yard. When I arrived, a large dog started barking. Travis approached the dog with a smile, petted it, and it calmed down, allowing me to pet it as well. While we were playing with the dog, the front door opened, and his parents came out. His mother had a sharp, intimidating look, and his father looked down on me. "Don't touch our dog. You're disgusting," were the first words out of his father's mouth. He didn't even greet me before starting to berate me, making me feel very uncomfortable. "How dare you speak to her like that? If you keep acting this way, I won't hesitate to cut ties with you," Travis said, standing up for me. His parents glared at me but didn't say anything further. They then invited us into the house. I found it odd because, although Travis had gentle eyes that made him seem kind, he didn't look much like his father. His mother had sharp, upturned eyes, but Travis didn't resemble her or his father much. It's not uncommon for children to not look like their parents, so I decided not to worry too much about it. As I looked around the house, a middle-aged man in a suit appeared. "Welcome home, young master," he said to Travis with a warm smile, bowing as he greeted him. His kind smile was so friendly that I couldn't help but smile back. "It's been a while, Mr. Williams," Travis said warmly. "You're all grown up now, young master," Mr. Williams replied with a smile. It was the first time I saw Travis genuinely smile since we arrived at the house. He then introduced me to Mr. Williams. "This is Mr. Williams, my father's right-hand man. To be honest, he's like a father to me. My father never showed much interest in me, so Mr. Williams often took care of me." "You're the boss's son. I was just doing my job," Mr. Williams said, but added with a smile, "You've always had a special place in my heart. I like you more than I do your father." Travis chuckled at Mr. Williams' words. It was the first time I saw him laugh so naturally. Just then, Travis's mother came out from a room in the back, shouting angrily, "Marina, what are you doing? Come here right now." She glared at Mr. Williams. "What do you think you're doing, slacking off? How many times have I told you to stay away from Marina? I'll make sure my husband hears about this. You better get back to work." Mr. Williams replied, "I understand. I'll do as you say," and left the room. I wondered if being the CEO's secretary meant always having to cater to the whims of the CEO's wife. Travis looked at his mother with anger. "Why do you always treat Mr. Williams so badly? He's been working so hard for Dad." "Be quiet. Just do as your parents say," his mother snapped. "Now come over here." Travis and I followed her to the living room. We sat on the sofa across from my in-laws. My mother-in-law spoke first. "Thanks for wasting our time today. I heard you're here to get our blessing for your marriage, but we don't approve. Just give up and go home." I was prepared for her harsh words. It didn't bother me. "No, thank you for taking the time to meet with us," I said with a calm smile. "Travis and I love each other. It's natural for two people in love to want to get married, don't you agree?" My mother-in-law sighed dramatically. "Oh, you don't understand anything about marriage. Since our last meeting, I've looked into you. You're just a mediocre woman who graduated from an average university and joined a small company. Despite your lack of remarkable skills, you've managed to catch Travis's attention. Travis, you really think a woman like Marina is good enough for our family? A good match is what matters in marriage," his mother said. "Mom, Marina and I work at the same company and do the same job. If Marina isn't good enough, then neither am I. We're a good match," Travis defended. "You're different," his mother replied. "There must have been a reason for you to lower your standards and work there. She only had that option available to her." She then smirked and looked at me with a mocking gaze. "It seems like you come from a poor family. Are you just after our money?" Her comment about my family made me very angry. I had promised myself not to let her get to me, but mentioning my parents was too much. I retorted, "Please don't assume we're poor. Just because we live in an old house and drive a car that's a bit dated doesn't mean we're poor. We value our home and our car." "Yes, I know your father is a university professor and your mother is a high school teacher," she said dismissively. "But there's too much of a difference between our families." She laughed harshly. "Travis is going to take over his father's business someday. Do you really think the daughter of mere educators can marry him?" That's when Travis stood up, looking angrier than I had ever seen him. "It's pointless to talk to you. I can't forgive you for insulting someone I care about. Marina, let's go. There's no point in trying to convince them anymore." Travis took my hand and we left their house. "I'm sorry, I'll explain to your parents why we couldn't have a proper conversation," he said. "Please don't say you won't marry me." I could only nod in response to Travis's desperate plea. We went straight to my parents' house and told them everything that had happened. Travis had anticipated problems and had brought a voice recorder to capture all of his mother's rude comments. After listening to the recording, my parents thought for a moment and said, "Yes, his mother wasn't nice, but you two are giving up too easily. We'll come up with a plan so you can continue with your wedding preparations. Even if you don't get their blessing, if you two have decided to marry, you don't need parental approval. But it would be best if you could get Travis's parents' blessing. With this calm support from my parents, Travis and I felt reassured and agreed to proceed with our plans. We decided to leave the issue with Travis's parents in my parents' hands and focus on our future together. A month later, my parents called us to visit. When we arrived, we found Travis's parents and Mr. Williams seated around a table. The room felt crowded as we joined them, and I braced for more rude comments. However, they remained quiet. It was my father who updated us on what had been discussed. Travis's parents decided to look into your background, so we did the same with them, my father began. He explained that Travis's parents had married 30 years ago after his mother became pregnant and Travis's father had just started his company. Mr. Williams, who was then an ordinary employee, had supported Travis's father and mother devotedly. Travis interrupted. That's all common knowledge in our family. Mr. Williams started as an ordinary employee but was promoted to my father's personal assistant due to his hard work. My mother raised me mostly on her own while my father managed the company. Mr. Williams supported both of them greatly. My father nodded, acknowledging Mr. Williams's dedication. Now, on a different note, I'm a genetic researcher at the university. Genetically, children inherit half of their DNA from each parent. The room fell silent as Travis's father and Mr. Williams exchanged tense glances. Travis's mother was sobbing uncontrollably, and Travis's anger was palpable. Travis's father finally spoke, his voice heavy with regret. 30 years ago, I was so consumed with my work that I neglected my family entirely. When my wife told me she was pregnant, I had been hiding my infertility from her. We had a huge argument. I told her if I raised her child as my own, I would forgive her infidelity, and she agreed. I then made Mr. Williams my personal assistant to keep an eye on her and prevent her from continuing the affair. Travis's mother, still crying, added, I loved Mr. Williams. I wanted to raise Travis with him. Travis is a treasure that I created with a man I truly loved. I can't let him marry someone I don't know. I absolutely won't allow this marriage. Travis looked at his parents with a mixture of disgust and sadness. I always known you didn't love me the way a child should be loved. I felt my mother's abnormal obsession with me for years. I've often wished Mr. Williams were my real father, but this is beyond anything I could have imagined. Mom, I no longer want to consider you my parents. Even if Mr. Williams is my biological father, I will not accept this twisted family dynamic. Travis's declaration hung in the air, the weight of his words settling heavily over everyone. My father and Mr. Williams, both visibly shaken, looked at each other, grappling with the emotional revelation. In the aftermath of this dramatic confrontation, it became clear that the path forward would be fraught with complex emotions and difficult decisions. The depth of betrayal and the intricacies of familial relationships had been laid bare, and Travis and I faced a future filled with uncertainty, but also a renewed sense of resolve to build our lives together, despite the challenges ahead. Travis made it clear that he would not accept his mother's behavior or forgive his parents. He decided to cut ties with them and marry me no matter what they said. When he said this, his mother clung to him, crying and insisting that he belonged to her and shouldn't marry me. She even suggested that we should live with her so she could allow the marriage. I had to step in and told her firmly to stop. I said that Travis was clearly upset and hurt by her actions. I explained that if she only cared about her own desires and betrayed her husband to be with Mr. Williams while continuing to deceive Travis, that was a problem between them. But interfering with Travis's happiness was unacceptable. I told her that if she wouldn't put his happiness first, she was failing as a mother, and I would make sure Travis was happy. His mother cried more and called me cruel, but Mr. Williams comforted her. We decided to handle future matters later. A few days after that, Travis's parents officially apologized to us and accepted our marriage. We were able to get our marriage certificate and Travis moved into my home. Travis's father couldn't forgive his wife's betrayal, so they divorced and split their assets. Mr. Williams also resigned and moved far away with Travis's mother, who now had to live a much less glamorous life. She occasionally sent letters asking for money, but Travis ignored them. He cut off contact with his father because they weren't biologically related and had no intention of becoming Mr. Williams' adopted son, even though legally he remained his father's son. Without Mr. Williams' support, Travis's father's company started failing and he eventually left his position. No one knows where he went after that. A year after marrying Travis, I saw that his parents' house was up for sale. We had a small wedding ceremony with close family and relatives due to the complicated family issues, but it was a special day. Now, we have a beautiful daughter, and I've quit my job to focus on raising her. My parents visit often to help, which is a big support. Travis and I are committed to supporting each other and raising our daughter with love.